back to Three Legacies Recovery Recording Podcast, where we explore the ongoing journey of recovery and the spiritual growth that comes with it. If you enjoy our program, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to share with a friend. Please note that the views expressed on this podcast are solely our individual views and do not represent any official stance of any 12-step program. We are not affiliated with any specific recovery organization, and this content should not be considered professional advice for alcoholism or addiction.
Hey everyone, it's Paul from Three Legacies Recovery Recording Podcast with a quick note before we get started with this episode. It's hard to believe we've been doing this for an entire year now. It's been such an amazing experience getting to know everybody. We already have the majority of 2026 booked up, and we have a lot of great guests scheduled. We don't make any money off YouTube or any of the other platforms. This podcast is completely self-supporting, and we've spent a lot of money, time, and energy into it simply just because we love doing it. We're not trying to make a profit, but we are trying to cover our upcoming expenses if that's at all possible. If you'd like to be a part of that, you can make a contribution at our Venmo, which is Recovery Recordings 615. We'd like to keep this commercial free. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Three Legacies Recovery Recording Podcast. I'm your host, Paul. Today is Saturday, January 10th, 2026, and this is episode 95. Let's see, we appreciate all the comments, all the support we've been getting from all the listeners. You can reach us at our email address, which is recoveryrecordings615@yahoo.com. You can also find us we have a private Facebook page. Get on there and send us a friend's request. We'd love to add you to the page. We try to keep any kind of upcoming events on there. And so just thank you for all the support. Let's see, speaking of upcoming events, we have tomorrow evening, we have Jane W. from Nashville, Tennessee, and Gene C. from Eugene, Oregon. And we're going to be we're calling it Attraction Rather Than Promotion. And Gene is... We've had Jane on the show a couple different times, and we got a few more episodes for the next few months booked with her. And Jean is one of her mentors when she first came into recovery, and the idea is, just how much we needed that, how much we needed somebody we could look up to that was willing to share their life with us, and I'm super excited about that. Attraction rather than promotion. Next Sunday, which is January 18th, 2026, we have Bill C. from Torrance, California. And Bill, this is his second time on the show as well. We're calling the episode Spiritual Condition. Do you have one? ? That's going to be exciting. My prayer today is that something spoken here touches someone's heart, draws them closer to the Spirit, and helps them receive strength needed to keep moving forward towards healing, hope, and renewal. And today's guest, we have... a couple friends of ours. First off, my wife, Lisa H. from Lebanon, Tennessee. How's it going, Lisa?
Oh, so mic check. Am I on?
Yeah,
We're on?
yeah.
Excellent. I'm fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is, y'all probably remember, I had Lisa on the show, I don't know, 6 months ago or something, so.
About 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm looking for a rebuttal. I'm looking to redeem
Nice. And then a couple of dear friends of ours, home group members, friends of ours. We got Kelly B. from Mount Juliet and her husband, Brent. How's it going, y'all?
Hiya. All good.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody. A little nervous, quite honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's okay. Yeah.
We're going to have a good time.
Yeah. We are calling this episode The New Order of Things. And when we were discussing it, we were just like, man, I was, kind of going into prayer with it and wondering what could be like an all-around, we could talk about pretty much anything and it work out. And The New Order of Things is what came to me. And I'll read real quick to kind of get this thing rolling on how it came about this. So in Bill's story on page 13, Bill Wilson had Abby showed up with, Abby was an old drinking buddy of Bill's, and Bill knew that Abby drank like him, and all of a sudden he showed up at his house one day, and he's like, wow, something's gotten into this guy, and at the time Bill was still drinking, and he ended up getting, I think it was a few weeks later, he ended up in Towns Hospital, and Abby, he called Abby and he was like, what does this guy got? And Abby had came and took him through some of the steps that they had at the time. with the Oxford group, and that was in Towns Hospital. I always find it interesting, though, because supposedly when the records show that Bill Wilson was only in Towns Hospital for 12 days. So to think of it, like him and Abby had went through this process in 12 days. So it's like, wow, Anyway, so Abby took him through the process, and then and how at the very end, well, let's see, on page 13, what Bill says, he says, "My friend promised me when these things were done, I would enter upon a new relationship with my Creator," which is really what this thing's all really about. "That I would have the elements of a way of living which answered all my problems. Belief in the power of God." I love how all through the book they don't necessarily talk about believing in God. They always talk about believing in the power of God. It's way different, right? Belief in the power of God plus enough willingness, honesty, and humility to establish and maintain the new order of things, or the essential requirements. Simple but not easy, a price had to be paid. It meant destruction of self-centeredness. I must turn in all things to the Father of light who presides over us all. And that's where we're getting this. It's kind of a roundabout way of, the new order of things. For me personally, when I came in, I got sober in 2016. And at that point in my life, it was just constantly, the cost of doing business was failed relationships. I was looking at doing a prison sentence. I had relationships with my family, not just with romantic relationships over the years, but with family members. No one trusted me. I'd been lying to everyone for years. It was just a sad, miserable life. And I'd come in, I'd met some people, and they were willing to share their life with me. And they started. I think one of the big parts about that was that I found someone that I could trust. We were talking here recently. It's kind of like what we're talking about with Jane's episode for tomorrow is I've seen some of the craziest cold-blooded people come out of prison, and then like all of a sudden be willing to listen to you. It's like this person wasn't willing to listen to anybody ever, in their entire life, and then all of a sudden like there's some kind of connection. God's put this person, you're divinely crafted to work with this guy, And, so I think that was a big part of my, for sure, like a pivotal point in my life, when I'd come in. And then luckily those people that were willing to share their lives with me, started taking me through this process. And I started getting enough evidence in my life that God cares and that he's, he actually does care about me, and he's a loving God, etc. And then, then that was a process right there. That took a while for me. And then it was about like learning how to, do the daily application of spiritual principles, which I think is the key to this whole thing. How do I put God's ambitions before my own? What would God have me be in this situation? When none of that stuff was ever even something I ever considered in my life. And if you look at what Bill's saying right there, he's saying, to establish and maintain the new order of things. What does that mean? It's about putting God's ambitions above my own. And when I first got here, that just wasn't even, I've never even considered something like that. So, we're gonna just have a casual conversation and just share our experience with what life looked like and then what it looks like now. And I think what we'll do is we'll probably do like maybe 5 minutes each, something like that. And we're gonna start with Lisa.
Yeah, thank you so much, Paul. Fantastic opening. So glad that I get to be here with a couple of my great friends. Kelly and I get to do a lot of great things together, and I'm so excited to share this time with her. She's one of my favorite people in this thing, and that's and me too, Kelly. I'm excited too. I'm intimidated. I'm excited, because just to break the ice is like, I got and prayed up with God, and I was good, and Paul was like, "Are you good? We're ready to go." And I was like, "We're ready to rock." And you guys got here, and I was like, "Let me catch my breath. Hold on." I don't know if I am or not. Yeah,
Same. Yeah.
So here we are. The new order of things. So this is the rearrangement of priorities in my life, and the exciting part of that is that this is the one thing that came true for me in the very, very beginning, and that was that I had the ability to shift my perception. That was one of the blessings that Alcoholics Anonymous gave to me almost immediately. As soon as I realized that I had the ability to shift my perception, and then more and more things began to open up for me. And I then began to see that the priorities that I believed that I had, the things that I thought I needed to do in order to get the things back, the man, the car, the kids, the whatever, were no longer at the top of the list, right? It now became God-centered, that power that Paul was just describing, the way that this thing is written. I'm just going to read just a minute here on page 14 at the bottom. And this is after, Bill's in the hospital, he's doing the thing, and he says, my friend had emphasized the absolute necessity of demonstrating these principles in all of my affairs. And how do I get to that space? Because where I came from, I know I can still get to today, but where I came from before I got here was, the insanity of self-will, destructive, catastrophic drinking, the inability to build relationships, any type of meaningful, anything in life was gone, full of pride and ego, fear and resentment, and a nutcase of a control freak. And so how do I get to the other side of that? And for me, it's at the page of bottom of 14 right there. It's finding that willingness to allow God, my higher power, to work in my life and in through that started as in the rooms, right? Like I get here, I'm scared to death. I have no idea. They're talking about God. I'm revolting like a cat in water. And and sponsorship started it out for me, and just that glimpse of willingness when she was sharing her life with me of what it looked like. It resonated with me that, hey, if she can do this, I maybe can too. And the idea to have something impressed upon us through that rearrangement of priorities had to start with the principles. Like, how am I living my life? How am I showing up on a daily basis? Do I have hope? Do I have honesty? Do I know what those two things mean?
Yeah, asking for help.
Yeah. That's am I willing to do that? And it's matured from there. It just materializes from there. And so as I grow up in that first 6 months to a year, as I grow up and these things start happening, things start maturing in my life, and I begin to see like, hey, living by this set of principles is going to be something far greater than I could have ever dreamed. The idea of getting and staying sober through the priorities that I believed that I had they no longer exist. And it's turned into something that is far greater than anything I could have ever dreamed. And that's where we sit today. And hopefully that's what we're going to continue to discuss today. I want to make sure that it continues to grow from there.
Yeah, I tell you, for me, what it brings up for me is me and Renee were talking about 6 months ago. She made the comment about you get to a spot where it's about not God getting bigger, but us getting smaller, right? But that wasn't my experience in the beginning. Like, for me, God was not big enough. You know what I mean? I had a bunch of evidence in my life that God don't mess with people like me, et cetera, et cetera. And that might not have been everybody's experience. This is how I felt. So, like, in order for me to get smaller, I had to get some evidence in my life where I had to see that God actually wanted to at least was interested in me and cares enough to actually, be interested in my life, right? And that I needed help through that process. But that was just my experience. And Kelly, what's on your mind?
Hi there. So I was just thinking about when I was brand new in my first year. When I showed up here, I was very much like Bill was, where he talks about the word God still aroused a certain antipathy, hostility in me. I didn't want to have anything to do with that.
Sure.
The other side of that is that I was broken in so many ways. My first sponsor, I didn't start working steps until I had about a year of sobriety. And what saved me in the beginning was the fellowship. And I was just like a lot of meetings, but following the direction of praying.
Yeah.
Praying to something I did not believe in, did not want to have anything to do with, but I was, I just didn't want to go back where I came from. I was so desperate. And so I was willing, I had that gift of desperation, right? And so I started praying morning and night. And you just mentioned Paul Little miracles. He's on page 11, he talks about ideas about miracles were drastically revised.
Yeah.
Right. And I so identify with that. And it was like, so I'm going along and I'm doing these little prayers and I'm going to meetings every day and I'm not picking up and I'm crazy. I'm following direction of my sponsor. I'm learning how to trust another woman, another human being, period. Mm-hmm. Just talking about what I was feeling and thinking and, just, and she was showing me how to have fun.
Yeah.
Like playing sober softball, right? Went out on their boat.
That you didn't want to do, probably.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
No, but it was like, well, what do you do?
Yeah.
Like when I showed up here, I was 32. What do you do for fun if you're not getting loaded?
Yeah.
Right? I had no idea. So it was terrifying. Anyway, but so that thing of little miracles that I started to see because it was about awareness, right? And so just little things where I would react differently to a situation, or like, I don't know, the colors came back, where I started recognizing the beauty of the world around me. Mm-hmm. I started, doing something nice for somebody else without a price tag on it, right? Allowing somebody to do something nice for me. Mm-hmm. I mean, just all those little subtle things that I didn't know how to do because everything was transactional in the old days. Oh. And so, I mean, before I even worked the steps, I was like starting to just, because I was willing to pray to a God that I didn't believe in or want to have anything to do with, things started to shift. Mm. And that was miraculous, right? And then, so, I was, that thing, and you kind of mentioned it, Lisa, more than inwardly reorganized, being on a different footing. Roots grasping a new soil. That kind of process that happened when I started actually doing the work. That first step, knowing, that I was powerless over alcohol. Absolutely. I knew that. But I still had that thing of that I was in the wrong place at the wrong time for a while. And that my life really wasn't that unmanageable because I had a roof over my head and I had car insurance and I had, I had registration in my name. I'm not as bad as them. And I supported, the man I lived with. And, it was like, but at the same time I was, I was a hot mess and I was broken and I was crossing lines. I had crossed all the lines that I thought I would never cross. Mm-hmm. I just hadn't murdered anybody yet, but pretty much I had everything else that I thought I would never do. And so, coming back from that, anyway, I feel like I've gotten way off track here.
No, that was good.
So just being willing to follow some direction, to trust another woman, to say what I was thinking and feeling, to pray, and to start working steps. And I went to a lot of big book studies. I went to the ones that were the most powerful were ones that were, there was one that was at somebody's house that was, it was awesome. And just like a page by page big book study with somebody that a lot of people in the fellowship where I got sober didn't really like him. They thought he was kind of cultish and weird and some kind of guru. But you know what? That man knew the big book. And he shared it with us with a whiteboard and
magical.
Like it was. And I was at that house every week faithfully. And I know that that's what saved me. It's like getting into this book right away. And the lights started going on.
Nice. No, I love that because what it brings up is like a common theme over the last couple months has been Scott was on the show and he mentioned a bottom, and he was talking about how like what he defines bottom as is when willingness is there. You know, it's like I'm willing to do something that someone else suggests, even though I don't want to, I don't like it, I don't think it's going to help, I think it's absolutely retarded, I'm still willing to do it.
Yep.
You know, and it's what you're talking about. I love how
Exactly.
it says bottom is the moment self-will loses authority and willingness takes over. It's like, wow, that's big. You know, I love that.
That's that.
Yeah. Which is really it. It's the new order thing. It's like, what happened? Me and a guy was talking last night, and it was like, I'd been to AA a handful of times. Why was it different this time? You get what I mean? Like something happened. You know, Brent, what's up, buddy?
Hey, how's everybody doing today? So I was thinking about our subject and thinking more along the lines of how I would define the new order of things. And you know how I achieve that, and how I make that work today to continue, you know, this new order of things that I've achieved. And so, you know, I was thinking about it and wrote down some notes. And one of the things that actually Kelly and I were talking over breakfast, you know, a little bit about that, and today, the importance of step 6 and 7 and doing 10 on a daily basis is so important to do that. And how did I get there? You know, when I was out there and I was doing my thing, all the life drama, I didn't realize, you know, the drinking was a symptom of my alcoholic behavior, right? So all that drama, self-will and chaos, that was really how I operated. And what I needed to get to was, you know, a spiritually grounded life and learn to be of service and connect to people. I'm a loner. I drink alone. I do all my alcoholic behavior that I hurt everybody with started with me being in my head, thinking about what I was doing alone. So, you know, the opportunity, like we were talking about, being willing, you know, be willing to be part of the world again, and be with people and become free from my alcoholic condition. So what did that mean? You know, so the new order of things. Well, I needed to get a spiritual foundation. We're spiritually sick, right?
Yeah.
That begins with step 1. I can't manage my life alone. God's my director, right?
Yeah.
So I remember one of the first things that I learned, my first sponsor, Brian S., if you're out there, you know, that man taught me to be a mature, grown man.
Nice.
You know, responsible, doing the deal, and continue to do the deal. And I keep in touch with him.
Nice.
One of the first things he taught me was the simplest prayer: God, guide my thoughts and direct my words.
Nice.
Right. And so later on, as I continued, you know, learning to pray and what prayer really means, I remember reading some Emmett Fox, you know, Golden Key and stuff like that is really important. Yeah. But one of the things that really struck me was he talked about, you know, we're God's kids, like Chuck C talks about, right? And so if we're God's kids, God's my dad, my father, and you know, how do I need to talk to my dad? So I'm not a repetitive, you know, directed, you know, prepared prayer. I talk to God just like we talk to each other in conversation.
Nice.
And I learned to use it like that. And what it was explained to me was like, you know, so I have 2 sons, and how do my sons talk to me? Do they talk to me with prepared phrases and a bunch of you know, demonstrations of, you know, however whatever it is that they need to talk to me about? No, they talk to me like a regular guy. Thank God we're all adults now, and we get to have regular conversations and we understand each other. The next up, it's like the bullet points here, right? So willingness and action came up. The spiritual index, or the spiritual appendix on 568, that last paragraph. We find no one need to have difficulty with the spirituality of the program. Willingness, honesty, and open-mindedness are the essentials of recovery. These are indispensable.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. I was introduced to a meeting out in Northern California where the spiritual experience was part of the opening.
Nice.
Of all of the stuff that we do, to start up a meeting, and that was a part of that, and that really grew on me and impressed me. I need to be open to change, right? The other thing that I learned was the set aside prayer when I was doing my work. Set aside, because I grew up in a conservative Christian family, and I went to parochial schools, and so I had that idea that God is this fire and brimstone guy in this other place,
Yes.
and I am going to burn in hell. From a very early age, I was pretty sure that I was not going to be part of God's people.
Yeah.
And so, with that attitude, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Do the work and learn and adjust. Right. Consistent action. So I needed willingness to learn, but then I had to do something with it. Right. And so I remember, old timers given that analogy of, going to the gym and watching everybody work out.
Yeah.
And then get back in the car and go home. Well, what did I get out of that?
That's
right?
me at the gym.
Yeah. The next bullet I had, my life transforms, right? So I'm doing the work now, finally. The daily drama of the stuff that was going on, I've finally got relief from that. Another prayer that I really put into action in my life was the St. Francis prayer.
I love that.
And I have a shift from loneliness, and I have new friendships, and I have better choices that I've made in my everyday actions, and I'm satisfied with my life. There was a guy when I was new in the men's group that I hung out with that got me sober. Was this guy celebrating his seven-year sobriety birthday, and so we're at some pizza place, and his wife brings out the cake and happy birthday and blah blah blah, and it's time for Marty to say some sort of speech, and what he said was, "I am grateful that I am satisfied with my life today," and that was another landmark in my journey.
Love that.
That really changed my perspective. I'm looking for satisfaction in my day. It's not always going to be great. That's where living life on life's terms that I heard in the rooms. When I first heard that, I was just like, what the heck are you talking about?
Yeah.
If you saw how my life is, you would not be wanting to live life on life's terms.
Yeah.
That shift came for me at some point. So I found purpose. I have a purpose in my life, being of maximum service, putting that into work. And so beyond being satisfied, there's actually joyful moments. I remember the first time that I had like a real belly laugh, right?
Yeah.
New in sobriety,
Cheeks
that
hurt.
first belly laugh, talking about earlier about, the colors come back.
Yeah.
I remember riding my motorcycle to work one early morning and realizing, the spring flowers, the colors, the orange of the poppies that grow on the side of the road in Northern California, all of that stuff. And it was like a whole new, it was a whole new awakening beyond just being free, being relieved of the obsession for alcohol, right? In my interaction with everybody around me, honesty and humility, man. I'm not a very honest person naturally. I had to really work on that. So one of my early experiences with honesty and humility, and Kelly knows this story well. She was there. Kelly and I, when we first met, we would go to this really cool meeting together where you would hike in this park, and the group would find a place to have a picnic. So we would hike, sit down somewhere, have lunch, and have a meeting out there. And maybe third or fourth time we went to do that. About the third or fourth time we went to do that, we're sitting in my old pickup truck waiting for everybody to show up, and the thought crosses my mind that I need to be honest and open with this lady. If she wants to spend some time with me, maybe she better have a clearer picture of who I am. And so, I explained, hey, this is my old pickup truck. I'm still making payments on it. I owe financial amends, and told a lot of honest stuff about myself so that she knew if she was looking to hook her wagon to this, it's going to come with some adversity right now.
Nice.
Right?
Yeah.
Didn't marry him for his money. That's
There you go.
So yeah, and at least give her a break on what she was getting into on that, and it was really important. And honestly, that was at 49, 50 years old, the first time that I treated a new relationship the way a mature man should really treat a relationship, right?
Yeah, I get that. I'll tell you what comes to mind for me is you had talked about 6 and 7 and then 10. And it's like, especially when it comes to like relationships, how easy is it to get like, wake up and just be in a mood or whatever and get that like irritability, just like, every time something happens, you're just like, and like, if it wasn't for, it shows me how important the recovery process is, not just was, but is, but I had no clue stuff like that was going on when I first come in, and after I'd gotten here and like what Kelly was talking about, this awareness, I started getting some awareness in my life. And, one thing that's cool, what would come to mind was this, is I love how we're talking about how like we started seeing like, wow, we could enjoy life. I did start seeing colors. I was able to just enjoy moments like sitting out in the backyard or whatever. Right. But for me, where that came dangerous for me was I would use some of this self, I would use like meditation, etc., as like a self-serving thing, right? And next thing you know, it's like I just want to feel good, what are you doing to get in the way, and like all of a sudden it's like now she's in the way, this person's in the way, this person's in the way. So if it wasn't for the 6 and 7, some awareness and a 10 of like realizing like this ain't about you, Paul, it really isn't about you, dude. Like, what can you do to be helpful? Mm-hmm. What can you do to make it, to add to this day? What's God's ambitions do you think would be, what would God have me be in this situation? So I love that. I love touching on some of this stuff. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
After that, I think that the importance to continue to grow, there's no finish line.
Yeah.
I heard at a meeting years ago, there's no finish line.
Right.
I had to stop and think about that. It was like the needle scratching across the record.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And, recovery requires, continuous problem solving.
Yeah.
It's important to do that and continue to grow. And every time that I go through the book, whether it's with a sponsee or with the sponsor, there's new things that maybe I'm ready to receive that come up and I can grow from that. So keep doing the steps has been a really important thing for me.
Yeah.
And, lately I hadn't done that, and meeting up with a guy and getting a new sponsor and making that all fresh again has been really, I was surprised how important that was to put a new freshness on my day in my life. And then, I haven't sponsored anybody for a long time, and I have a new sponsee, and man, getting back in the book and working to share with him out of the book, doing my homework and to be ahead,
Right.
be at least one step ahead.
Sure.
Because, I don't want to be unprepared.
Yeah.
I want God to be able to speak through me. It was really important, about sponsorship. There was a guy that said, sponsorship is all about God. And I listen for that when somebody picks up a chip, when, how did you do it? And everybody at one time or another has something different to say. But every once in a while, I hear somebody say, God. It's so important, God. And so what this guy told me was, you could have chimpanzees from the zoo holding up flashcards, sponsoring people because God is doing the work.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I love
Nice.
that. Lisa.
Oh, my turn?
What comes
Excellent.
to mind?
Well, with all this God talk, we cannot, for some reason, I keep wanting to speak about a little bit about the third step, right? Like, in order to get to that space, once our eyes have opened and we're willing to ask for help and we have this new perception and this new ability, what stands out to me is that the idea of this old phrase that is in the third step in the big book, and it says something about y'all may be familiar with this: selfishness and self-centered, that we believe is the root of our troubles. And so once I realize what the heck has got me in this space, in this predicament, then I really have the idea of what it's going to take to get out of it. And that's the practice of turning my will and my life over to the care of God as I understand Him. And through that, it takes a lot, man. I don't know about you guys, but you may as well have been hitting me with a hot poker. When I start taking a look at this, and it's right above it, it says, we had a new employer, being all powerful. He provided what we needed if we kept close to Him and performed His work well. Established on such footing, we became less and less interested in ourselves, our plans, and our designs, and more we became interested in seeing what God could contribute, what we could contribute to life. As we felt this new power flow in, as we enjoyed peace of mind, as we discovered we could face life successfully, we had, as we became conscious of His presence, we began to lose the fear of today, tomorrow, and hereafter. We were reborn. And that's a tall order for somebody like me. Everything that you guys have just touched on and spoke about is like, good Lord, to come out the other side and for them to hit you with something as deep as we were reborn. Mm-hmm. That is beyond monumental and petrifying. Paul, when he opened this thing up, he was talking about the difference between God and the power of God, right? Yes. So I can walk around all day long, nothing happens in God's world by mistake. I can do all the things, but do I really have that relationship in believing that no matter what happens, no matter how life, so long as I believe that there is something out there that's bigger than me, that's got my back, we're going to be okay.
And eager. He's eager.
He's ready, willing. Let's roll.
He's waiting. He's right there waiting on me.
It's so wild that happens. The insanity for me comes when I'm like, well, wait a minute. I didn't try it. Let me just see how my way goes first. And it's not my knee jerk in the beginning. It takes a while for God to be my right hand. And so I have to keep practicing at it. I have to keep showing up. I have to keep. There was one thing I wanted to. Brent also touched on when he pulled out the big guns over here in 567-68 here, right at the bottom, because this is me, y'all. If y'all know me, you know this is me. I'm the one that lives in everlasting ignorance from time to time at the bottom, and it says. Because we did start this thing out with the rearrangement of principles. It says there is a principle, which is a bar against all information, which is proof against all arguments, and which cannot fail to keep a man in everlasting ignorance. That principle is contempt prior to investigation. And I'm going to tell you right now that when they say, hey, Lisa, like this is what is going to bring us the peace, the love, the serenity, the love and tolerance, all of the things that you see in every other person in your life that is doing this deal. There's something in my being that says, yeah, but I always believe I'm the exception to the rule. I always it just happens without my permission. And so it's super exciting to see, like, whew, thank God that, I didn't fall victim to, to relapse during my bout of everlasting ignorance because, because I can be what I hear all the time. I was on the phone with a girl a minute ago and she says, I'm so bullheaded. And I'm like, well, yeah, me too. And, let's ask the other 5 that we've buried just how bullheaded we can be. And so it's important that I keep those things in the forefront for me. Stay close to this 3rd step prayer. I also that I remember that God doesn't make hard terms with those who seek him. Right. So if I'm putting in the work, looking for that power, right. And I'm relying on that power, the doors are just opening. I don't have to do much, but step right through. That's what this thing promises me. And that's been my experience over these years is, so long as I continue to show up and do this thing and I tap into what Paul had opened this thing up with and the difference between God and the power of God. So long as I stay tapped into that power, I stay unblocked and life just flows in and through. And it is miraculous in that space. Yeah, Kelly, what do you think?
I'm loving this. So contempt prior to investigation. Boom.
Yeah.
That's always my first, I'm always, and then over the years, I've gotten to that place where I can, I'll catch myself doing that, but I can step back. Right. I can step back now and go, okay, wait a minute. Let me like look at that from another angle.
Yeah.
Right. We look at things from a different angle.
Yeah.
The chapter to the agnostics is and always has been one of my favorite chapters in here. And it's the one that I just read over and over and over and over again. Because I really struggled with that. And John said at a meeting one night, it's called We Agnostics, not chapter 2, The Agnostic. It's called We Agnostics.
Wait a minute.
Which means that when we all get here, we are all agnostic.
Wow.
And I went, boom. I mean, that's just like something I heard, a year or two ago? And so again, my ego constantly rebuilds itself and I think that I know so much, but I don't. It's like the longer I'm sober, the less I know, and I want to go back to something that Lisa touched on initially, and that was that faith without works is dead, and how imperative it is that I work with others.
Yes.
For if an alcoholic fails to perfect and enlarge his spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others, we cannot survive the certain trials and low spots ahead. If I do not work, I will surely drink again, and if I drink again, I will surely die, and faith will be dead indeed. And I always like to read this book in first person too, because I see myself in here so much, and I just know that, I started. I did steps 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 a lot, in the beginning.
Yes.
And like I said, I didn't really get into the real work until I was about a year sober when I did my first inventory. And the process of me when I started doing inventory and doing the rest of these steps, which was like digging in my heels, don't want to do it. This is stupid. Why would I want to do this? Doesn't make sense. But doing it anyway, right? Doing it anyway. And until I started working and taking another woman through the steps, the work that I had done, which was I was just doing, but it wasn't really making that much sense to me.
Right.
But when I started taking another woman through the work, it all started making so much more sense. Yeah. And it all started the growth in me was it it like multiplied, or, you know, it's like the snowball effect of like, wow, because it was also that thing of, I am making suggestions to somebody. Am I doing it myself? Right?
Yeah.
I can't be, you know, and so it has always kept me on my toes. And like Brent had mentioned, it's like, I need to stay a step ahead. I need to be in this book, and am I living these principles? Am I walking the walk, or am I just talking it?
Well, yeah,
You know,
it does
and-
that shift from your
right?
head to your heart. Yeah, it just becomes
Right. So much. And so I am, you know, again, that whole, faith without works is dead. And as I would be. So this whole process of continuing to suit up and show up and self-sacrifice. I've been hearing a lot lately how being of service is inconvenient sometimes. And the more inconvenient it is, the more I get out of it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just, you know,
Yeah.
the jail meetings that I've been to recently, there's, God, a couple of them have just been so powerful. And it's usually on the one where it's like, man, I don't want to go out in the cold. I don't want to go out in the rain. And then it's like, man, I'm transformed while I'm in there with those women talking about the solution.
Yeah.
Right? Anyway, I think I just had another dead spot.
No, I love that. I'll tell you, I heard a guy, and this has stood out ever since, but we were talking about character building, and he said the act of carrying out a resolution long after the excitement of the moment has passed. It's like, how often do you like, oh, sign me up, and then like 3 weeks into coffee maker, be like, oh, man, come on, dude. You know, it's like, well, you still do it though. You signed up for it, you know? I'll tell you, like, as a sponsor, I love, like, you know, I'm always suggesting the guys service commitment, service commitment, commitment. I'll tell you, like, and what recovery's done for me over the years is it's given me smart feet, you know, like, meaning like there's times where like I can look over the last few years where like I'll go through like a week or two of depression, you know, and I actually feel like I have a little bit of depression over the last couple of weeks now currently, but like my feet still get up and I don't allow that to make my decisions, you know, and that's what recovery's done for me. The new order of things is one of the things is, you know, my feelings are it's crazy to say this, but my feelings are some of the least most important things in my life today. You know, recovery has given me, you know, the ability to not let that dictate what I do in life, and I just do stuff because it's just what y'all have taught me to do.
I always feel so good when I'm out being of service to somebody else.
Yeah.
I mean, whether it's somebody in the program or outside of the program, when I can stop and help another human being, I feel good.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was being of service commitments were drilled into me from the time that I was brand new. It's like, you know, get a commitment, be a commitment, you know, home group, you know, whether it's making coffee or being a greeter or whatever. And, you know, and I got into H&I, what they call corrections here early on. And that has just been like my passion in AA for many years. And it's just carried me. Being of service has carried me through times where, you know, life was really hard, you know, and things were falling apart, you know, end of a marriage, house in foreclosure, you know, I mean, all the kinds of, you know, there's like, I've had over the years come from nothing, had a lot, lost it all, started over, and always suiting up and showing up at Alcoholics Anonymous, being of service, telling the truth.
Yeah.
And being carried by my brothers and sisters here, you know, and God, you know, just, it's powerful what can happen here.
It's wild. Thank God.
Everybody here has spoke on the truth, the honesty, the way that life transforms, and just living by that very one small, it looks small principle, like being honest, having integrity, like finding truth. It's amazing what that step will do to your entire life. Yes. It's amazing what taking that action will do for your entire life. And that's a transformation in itself. You know, being willing to let go of the lying tongue.
Remember how easy, how hard, how much work it was when you were telling lies all the time, trying to remember who you told what to?
Yeah.
It's like, man, it's so much simpler to live without that. Not to say that I've been white as snow, because I haven't, you know.
No,
right? You know, but
Yeah.
it's a far cry from where it was, right? Like that's what
Absolutely.
I oftentimes have to remind myself, anyways. Yeah.
Brent, what comes to mind, buddy?
It's talking about practicing these principles in all our affairs, learning to do
Right.
that. I remember the first time I heard, reading the 9th step promises and following along and realizing that those promises had been realized in my life for the first time. And, even now, sitting at a meeting and when that gets recited, realizing that this has been my gift for this long and I don't want to lose it. And the importance moving into step 10 from that, the obsession to drink is gone and I'm living this life, middle of page 85. It's often read and it's really important to me. I've got it like double highlighted and underlined, it is easy to let up on the spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels.
Oh man.
We're headed for trouble if we do.
Drop the mic. Yeah.
Right? The subtle foe, right?
Yep.
We're not cured of alcoholism.
Golly.
Man, so the work has to continue. So, thinking about the order of things, continuing that. So, remembering I'm not cured.
Yeah.
What we really have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition.
Yeah.
So it always comes back to, that spiritual awakening and that spiritual condition.
Yeah. Which is like, that's what Bill C, when I asked him, I was like, what do you want to do next? What comes to mind when you think about the episode name? He said, spiritual condition. Do you have one? Question mark. That's what we're talking about next week. Right?
Yeah.
I didn't even realize, and I love that idea of like spiritual condition. Do you have one? Because when I first got here, I'd hear like the old timers talk about spiritual connection, it's connected to this and it being the most important thing in their life. And I would get pissed. I was just like, come on, dude, come on. What are you even talking about?
Right.
What are you even talking about?
Yeah, I remember asking myself that same question, and in my mind's eye, I saw that late night commercial, called Miss Cleo for the spiritual, advisor, learn the future.
Yes.
How wrong was I?
$9.99 a minute.
That's funny, dude. That's funny. That's the first I've ever heard. That's awesome. It's funny though, because I mean, like, even when I first come in, I used to like get into so many and I don't think there's anything wrong with the seeking. Like I'd seek in every kind of way. Like I'd crystals to friggin', anything, and I'm not against that stuff still. Whatever people, it's their thing, seek. That's the thing. Just seek, what is it? I think you just mentioned it. Someone, I think it did. Where God doesn't make too hard of terms for those who honestly seek Him. It's like, man, that's the key to this whole thing. Yeah, I tell you, thank God for if you look at that, like what got me into that was heartache. I'm a feel good junkie, and I don't like not to feel good.
Yes.
I don't like not to feel good, and I started having little glimpses, just a little bit at a time, of like, wow, this feels better. I'd get on I was like you, Kelly, like I didn't do my first 4 steps till I was like 14 months sober, right? But like I tell you this, and that I started having like experiences that like I would have a conversation with my sponsor, right? And the conversations that we would, it was like this man, my relationship with him was much more pleasant than my internal dialogue was and my view on everything, right? And that's how I started getting these shifts, like what Lisa was talking about, my shift in perspective. I started seeing how, like, man, I keep getting in the freaking way. Like I have a bunch of BS inside of me that's just lying constantly. One of those things is God doesn't care. God don't want to have anything to do with this. God, trust me, God. I'd go to, I'd heard in church over the years or whatever, what I heard, I don't even know they said this, but what I heard is the better you do, the closer you are with God. And I was like, like I'm screwed. I'm screwed.
Yep.
So thank God for that, and thank God for the people that were just willing. I also love the transparency that Bill has in Bill's story when he was talking about how although Ebby was in front of him and was like obviously his friend was in was on a different path, had something had happened to him, and he had that evidence right in front of him. He said the vestiges, is my belief, were still, he was still
Right.
pissed off
Wow.
about this whole thing.
Yeah.
And I love when I'm working with a new guy and I'm like, oh, you have a problem with God? So did Bill, and so did I,
Yep.
and so did about the
Right.
rest of us.
And the rest of us.
And he still died sober, however much longer, So anything else come to mind before we close this off?
I was just thinking how I love the 10th step promises.
Oh,
I'd like to
man.
read those.
Okay.
We have ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. For by this time, sanity will have returned. We will seldom be interested in liquor. If tempted, we recoil from it as from a hot flame. We react sanely and normally, and we will find that this has happened automatically. We will see that our new attitude toward liquor has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. That is the miracle of it. We are not fighting it, neither are we avoiding temptation. We feel as though we'd been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. We've not even sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed. It does not exist for us. We are neither cocky nor are we afraid. That is our experience. That is how we react so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition.
Nice.
And I just, there's, I don't know how many promises throughout this book. They're all throughout it. There is a condition attached to each promise in this book, right? So it's not like I get to just go sit in a meeting and I'm going to get this by osmosis. I got to do the work. I got to keep, showing up and doing the next right thing and keeping a relationship with God. But when I had that, I don't even remember when it was, but that moment where I was like, wow, when I realized that these promises had come true in my life where I was just okay. I'm okay. I feel good. I'm content. And I'm not struggling. I'm not fighting it anymore. Alcohol.
Yeah.
That whole obsession. It's amazing. And so now it's just like, the thinking. But,
Yeah. I'll tell you, and even that, like I like to talk about how, if everything was always hunky-dory, I wouldn't be as close to God as I am right now.
Right.
well, and you wouldn't know when it was bad or good. If everything was always good, we wouldn't know.
Right.
It's-
Contrast.
Yeah.
Life is a series of ups and downs.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
is what it is.
Yeah, that's so true. Thank God. All right, y'all. Anything else y'all want to add before we close this out?
This was kind of fun.
Yeah,
great
it's fun,
time.
wasn't it? We
Yeah.
should keep it.
Yeah, I enjoyed
Been a
this.
great time.
Yeah, we should do it some more.
Appreciate
Yeah.
that. Yeah, appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people will connect to this.
Thank
All right,
you.
everyone. Yeah, appreciate y'all. Thank you. We'll schedule another date and do it again sometime soon. For the listeners, we are tomorrow night. We have Jane W. from Nashville, Tennessee, and Gene C. from Eugene, Oregon. Again, it's attraction rather than promotion. And then next week we have Bill C. from Torrance, California.
Love him.
Spiritual conditions. Do you
Nice.
have one? So super excited about that. Until next time, y'all have a wonderful evening.
Hello, and welcome back to Three Legacies Recovery Recording Podcast, where we explore the ongoing journey of recovery and the spiritual growth that comes with it. If you enjoy our program, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to share with a friend. Please note that the views expressed on this podcast are solely our individual views and do not represent any official stance of any 12-step program. We are not affiliated with any specific recovery organization, and this content should not be considered professional advice for alcoholism or addiction.
Hey everyone, it's Paul from Three Legacies Recovery Recording Podcast with a quick note before we get started with this episode. It's hard to believe we've been doing this for an entire year now. It's been such an amazing experience getting to know everybody. We already have the majority of 2026 booked up and we have a lot of great guests scheduled. We don't make any money off YouTube or any of the other platforms. This podcast is completely self-supporting and we've spent a lot of money, time, and energy into it simply just because we love doing it. profit, but we are trying to cover our upcoming expenses if that's at all possible.